There are some difficult stories in the Bible. There's no point denying that. And recently I got to talk about one of them. In Genesis 12, Abraham gets this famous call from God and then immediately sets out to sell out his own wife to save his own skin. What's difficult about this story is that in the next chapter, it seems like Abraham gets off scot-free, and not only that, but better off financially. Part of the problem here is not that the Bible ignores bad behavior, it's sometimes that our translations miss out on some of the cues the writers are giving us.
Just quickly here, part of the struggle with last week's story is that Abraham mistreats his wife and gets off not only scot-free, but ahead financially. Like, how can that be ignored? Well, it's not ignored, it's just not translated particularly well. Because here, this phrase, very wealthy, is doing a lot of work. If you remember back to Genesis 12, the whole reason that Abraham goes to Egypt in the first place and then tries to pass off his wife to the Pharaoh is because there was a severe famine in the land. Well, here, the word wealthy is the same word translated severe just a few verses ago. Now, I understand where they're getting that from. It's not a bad translation per se, at least not in a vacuum, but it also completely obscures the connection the writer's trying to make. The word technically translates to something like heavy. So there was a heavy famine. Now Abraham is heavy with silver and gold. Wealthy makes sense, but it's not actually the point here. Heavy is. Abraham is heavy with ill-gotten wealth. He is weighed down with reminders of perhaps guilt over constant memories of the dignity and trust that he traded for trinkets. As the scholar Victor Hamilton writes, he has lost the respect of his wife. A fortune has been amassed, but an opportunity for trust has been lost. In other words, the narrator here is framing this wealth not as a reward, but as a penance. Now, the question in front of us as readers is whether Abraham will understand that. But perhaps the question in front of all of us as humans is whether we will understand that. Sometimes the line between reward and penalty is razor thin. And sometimes the answer is not particularly objective. Sometimes it will come down to the lessons that you are willing to learn about yourself. The problem is, many of us, scholars, translators, pastors alike, any of us actually that have been discipled by Western capitalism, somehow we read chapter 13, we hear that Abraham is very wealthy coming out of Egypt, and somehow we assume this story is a straight line continuation of that blessing from chapter 12. Talk about missing the point. This is a fascinating example of how if you do not learn to filter for your biases, they will filter everything for you.